This is my one-sided note card. This is my UFID. These are my 5 audience members. $41,000. That's how many Americans die every year because of gun violence. This is including suicide, homicide, unintentional shootings, and other reasons of gun deaths, according to Guilford Law Center, which is a leading organization in the legal community for advocating for gun prevention laws. Today, I aim to persuade you all that gun ownership policies are necessary for preventing gun violence in the future. You might be thinking, how does this impact me? I won't be a victim of gun violence. Gun violence impacts everybody, no matter who you are or where you are. It has found its way into our homes, into our local movie theaters, into the clubs, and even into our children's school. I have been researching gun violence for over a year now for several different one of my classes, and have been studying the trends of gun violence and different policies being enacted in the US to kind of build a strong foundation for me to talk about this topic. So today, I would like to go over how big of an issue gun violence is becoming in the US, a possible solution of using extreme risk laws in the US, and for all of us to visualize a world where gun violence is no longer a major threat in our communities. First, let's go over exactly how big of an issue is gun violence now. In 2020 alone, there were 45,222 gun deaths in the US. This is the highest it's been in 40 years, according to Guilford's Law Center. This includes suicides, homicides, unintentional shootings. Suicide is one of the main parts of gun deaths, and it makes up for 6 out of every 10 gun deaths in the US. Another major issue is homicide, especially when it comes to our school children. Since 1970, there have been 2,067 school shootings, according to the K-12 school shooting database that has been tracking school shootings for years now to help researchers find out ways to prevent school shootings in the future and tracking them. So there has just been a recent example of a school shooting. Just 20 days ago at Uvalde, Texas, 19 students and 2 teachers were killed at Robb Elementary School. Following the incident, one speaker and expert researcher from Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Prevention Policies spoke out on the issue. Sylvia Villarreal. She gave her condolences to the gun victims and their families, and she reminded us all that this tragic event was only a reminder why we need to push our lawmakers to start enacting gun violence policies now in the US to prevent more senseless loss of lives in the future. Now that we understand how big of an issue it's becoming in the US, let's talk about one possible solution we have to preventing gun violence: extreme risk laws. Extreme risk laws, according to congress.gov, which outlines all the potential policies being put right now into the House, says that extreme risk laws helps to prevent people from purchasing and receiving gun ammunition. This is only for people who pose a threat to themselves or to the people in the community. Right now, according to Johns Hopkins, 19 states and DC currently enact extreme risk laws. Several organizations have also spoken out about extreme risk laws, advocating for them and demonstrating its effect, including Every Town for Gun Safety, the American Federation for Teachers, the National Education Association, and the National Alliance for Mental Illness. Some of these states, including Indiana, have already shown signs of positive effects that extreme risk laws have had in the community. One researcher named Dr. Aaron Cavisto has been studying Indiana's and their suicide firearm rates, and there has been a 7.8% decline following 10 years after the enactment of extreme risk laws in the community. Some concerns that some people have about extreme risk laws is the impact it can have on the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. This is a valid concern that lots of people have, but extreme risk laws will not have an impact on your right to bear arms unless you pose a threat to yourself or people in the community. According to Evertown Gun for Gun Safety, which has been advocating for gun safety throughout the years and has done research on the topic, your right to bear guns will not be impacted, and if it is, it's only temporarily impacted by the judge if there is substantial evidence about why you cannot hold a firearm. If you do not pose a threat and there's no evidence of why you would be a threat, your Second Amendment right will still be as strong. But if you do pose as a threat, your Second Amendment right will temporarily be discarded until you no longer as seen as a threat in the community. So now that we've gone over how extreme risk laws could be very beneficial in our communities, I want you all to visualize a world. 2 worlds to be exact. But right before that, I want to tell a story. Matilda Rodriguez, a 10-year-old environmentalist that loved animals. She loved wearing these green Converse that had a red heart on her right foot that represented having the green foot for the environment. Matilda was just one of the 19 victims that lost her life in the Robb Elementary School shooting. And the only way her family was able to identify her was through her Converse. Now I want you to picture 2 worlds. One where extreme risk laws were never enacted. What would happen? More students will become a victim just like Matilda, and more people will become victims of suicides, and high trends will continue on, reaching skyrockets. Now, what if extreme risk laws were enacted? Trends will begin to decrease. A lot less students would be scared to go to school. There would be a lot less suicides, a lot less homicides due to gun violence. So now that we understand how our worlds will look like with or without these laws, I want to kind of conclude and preview what we've already discussed. We've mentioned how gun violence is becoming a huge issue in the US. We've mentioned one possible solution of using extreme risk laws, and we've gone over visualizing the difference between worlds with or without extreme risk laws. I urge you all to reach out to your local senators to push forward the Federal Extreme Risk Law Protection Order of 2021 to prevent more students' lives and our families' lives from being lost due to gun violence. Your voice could be the reason why another student, such as Matilda, is able to graduate and go on to their future. I urge you to act now. Thank you. I'll give you guys a second to answer any questions.
When did Florida enact the law?
Florida enacted the extreme risk law back in 2018.
Which state was the first to enact the law?
California first enacted the Extreme Risk Law Act in 2016, and it was one of the first. However, Connecticut enacted a very similar one called the Warren Act back in 1999.
Who are our senators?
Local senators you could reach out to are Marco Rubio and Rick Scott. So they're going to be your senators for Florida. Thank you for your time.